Hey everybody, it's Aluna Michaels, Esoteric Astrologer, coming at you to talk about the events of September 2025. And thanks as usual, always to the guys at the Know Thyself podcast for helping me out and getting so many cool people come to do sessions with me. So, all right, so September. I'm doing this on the 7th when we're having an eclipse. And it's a total eclipse, and it's at 15 degrees. It's a full moon, so the moon's at 15 degrees Pisces, and then the sun is in 15 degrees of Virgo. Now, Pisces moon is definitely kind of, open to possibilities and very spiritual and stuff like that. Could be a little nerve-wracking though, unsettling. And so, because a full moon can often be emotionally intense. And so when an eclipse happens, it's very strong within 3 days before and after the eclipse. And some people argue too the time in between eclipses, because we always have an eclipse here 2 weeks later at the new moon, be a partial eclipse in Virgo at 29 degrees, the very last degree of Virgo. But it just can be a little interesting, like if you're an artist or you're someone spiritual, if you're watching this, it's interesting for meditation, for dreams, for making art, for being creative. But it can be a time too, especially because going into it with the Pisces moon, which kind of re-emphasizes this idea of things being weird and strange, you can kind of have a lot of stuff coming up from your subconscious, things that feel like maybe you've dealt with before and they're coming up. Sometimes it could be even a temptation to go back to like an addiction or a toxic relationship or patterns of thinking that aren't good, and you felt like, I've gotten through this. Why is this coming up? So it can be a time of having another wave of forgiveness for yourself, that you've had that experience, or that you still carry some remnants of it in your psyche. And to really try to not back yourself down for it, because it's not the purpose when something's Pisces, and just the eclipse energy is looking at things with compassion, and finding out the mystery around things. Another thing that can kind of get you a little weird is that, say things come up in dreams or meditations or odd things happen to you, you'd be like, why is it happening? And because eclipses are so murky and weird, sometimes you don't know until after, which might not be because the second eclipse will be, I didn't write the date down. 21st. Well, sometimes it takes until the very end of September. So you might see, what is this about, or why did this come up, or that kind of thing. So trying not to be obsessive about the why and what's it mean. There's kind of keeping an open mind about what could it mean, but you get a little squirrel cage if you're thinking, I must know what it is definitively, It's kind of leaving room for the mystery, I guess you'd say, But it's a wonderful time about, again, the arts, the forgiveness, peace, and things like that. It can be good for cleansing, especially, I'm going to take some water right when I say that, especially with drinking lots of water, being in like salt baths, like Epsom salts, or I have Dead Sea salts that are really lovely, all sorts of minerals. It can be really good for like a juice fast kind of a thing like that, because of the water element of Pisces and that sort of idea of cleansing, because Pisces being the final sign of the zodiac, and then with the new moon eclipse being in the final degree of Virgo, and Virgo also representing health, and just kind of an easy sort of cleanse, or light fasting, or people try to experiment with, like the intermittent fasting, in the sense of not having food, not snacking after dinner, giving yourself even 14 hours, something sort of gentle. But there can be a sense of releasing physically, releasing toxins, again, releasing the toxic ideas, and not being intimidated or self-bludgeoning when stuff just sort of flows up in the subconscious. And that should be pretty good getting through the eclipse. Sometimes some people say not to, and it's a little late making the video now, but right before an eclipse or even after, like making some big decision, it can be kind of an interesting time. You get sort of locked into things, more sticky, stucky than you might think, mostly because we're in a different sort of mindset. And then it's like, why did I do that? Kind of like when Mercury's retrograde, why did I buy this car or something? But so it's kind of like just taking the time to perceive things about, again, if it's a decision, maybe not make the decision, but kind of think about the implications or the possibilities around that and making decisions later at the end of the month. So it's kind of like a mini Mercury retrograde in that regard, but it's more from like an emotional standpoint. So you can feel pulled into things that kind of wouldn't matter later, but then you're in it, especially relationship things. Sorry, my tongue got a little garbled there. Okay. So another thing that's interesting is the planet Uranus has just gone retrograde. So all the outer planets are retrograde nearly half the year and direct half the year. That's a very rough kind of estimate there, but pretty much Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, even Saturn, mostly, roughly half the year. So it's not like Mercury's retrograde, oh no, it's going to be bad until it goes direct. So Uranus goes direct, it's not like, oh, it's a mess until it goes direct in 6 months. It's more like that time period around it is a little strange. So we've just gotten through that because it went retrograde on the 5th, which is Friday. And sometimes I'm so busy doing sessions that I don't think about how the planets are impacting my chart, and I've been having so much trouble sleeping, just like, oh my gosh. And I am an insomniac to start with. I don't need any more help being sleepless. I thought, well, maybe the eclipse, but it's more like a sleepy type eclipse being in Pisces. And that Uranus sitting still before it goes retrograde can really disrupt people who are, fast thinkers, or people whose minds work really fast and don't relax before bedtime. So, or can be strange dreams too. But that, now that the Uranus is retrograde, helps to kind of soothe an edge to things, because the eclipse isn't so much edgy, it's just sort of strange. But the little tension before that we've had the past week could be part of the Uranus sitting still in the sky, but every day it's getting used to going backwards and no big whoop. What's kind of neat though, speaking of the Uranus retrograde, it's in Gemini. It will pop back into Taurus, but not for a bit. We don't need to talk about that. But Mercury is going into Libra. Of course, the sun will go into Libra at the end of September. But just the idea of Mercury, sorry, my throat's kind of funny. Mercury, that planet of thinking, being in Libra, and then it's going to make a positive angle, easy angle, to Uranus, even though Uranus is retrograde, Uranus in Gemini, so 2 air signs. And Uranus can be argued as like the higher octave of Mercury. Like if Mercury's your brain and the facts you know about the movies that some actor's been in, but then you can go online and see the Internet Movie Database page for that actor and be like, whoa, like all that stuff. So Uranus is like even more than you know, and the higher type of your mind. So when you combine Uranus and Mercury in that positive angle, it's like a lot of breakthrough thinking. You can meet interesting friends during that time. It just be good ideas. And again, this is going to be between like the 19th and 24th. So we're coming out of this, within the second eclipse, but out of it. And because that new moon eclipse is Sun in Virgo, Moon in Virgo at a new moon, it's kind of Mercury related anyway, because Mercury rules Virgo. So it's a lot of like cool ideas and new ideas and breakthrough thinking. So that idea I was saying about trying to figure out like what's going on, with this eclipse in Pisces, like kind of have your hypotheses, but you can have like an aha moment, like again, later in the month. Also, Mercury will be trining Pluto, which is in Aquarius, and so the other air sign. And Pluto makes Mercury the mind. Pluto makes it even deeper and more like, because Uranus is like aha, like kind of above your head, where Pluto is like deep in the recesses of your psyche or the earth, like you're pulling up a buried treasure from deep below, whereas Uranus is like, bing, you're kind of grabbing it out of the sky. So you get both of these ways of connecting with interesting ideas. Again, Mercury, I mentioned friends, can be new people in your life, new activities. So it's really nice that would be called a grand trine, that the three air signs working together, Uranus, Pluto, and Mercury, and just for like a week or so. But because it's coming out after the eclipse, and that second eclipse being Mercury related, it's like that's really cool. But kind of figure out where you are again, you know. And then the other thing at the end of the month is that Venus will be sextiling Mars. So Venus is a sextile is a 60-degree angle. Like we're going to have Venus in Virgo, and which is Earth, and then Mars in Scorpio, which is water. And so Earth and water work together. And there's a period of time where those guys are doing their thing, and that's like a similar time period, like that 19th to 24th. And Venus is really social, and Mercury is sort of curious and social. Venus is sort of heartfelt and connected, but it's also about music and art and just fun leisure times. And Mars is like taking action. So it's like people want to be social and want to get out and connect. It's a great time to be seeing friends and people that have your value system and that you feel it's easy to get along with them and stuff like that. It's also kind of sexy, Mars and Venus, obviously, and it could be time that relationships can do really well because there's that sexy kind of energy, but also being able to have really good communication because of all that Mercury. So if you're in a relationship, and I was saying not making big choices like jumping in a relationship earlier in September, or like I don't want to see you again or something. It's like that later part of September is like being able to make better choices. Being able to connect in a way that it's like good for you and good for the other person and isn't a bad old pattern repeating or whatever. So it's more fulfilling for connecting later in the month. So if you're already with somebody, so I'm thinking about meeting somebody new and getting involved with that stuff I said. But the other thing is if you're in a relationship and having trouble figuring each other out or going in a cyclical pattern of not good communication, the second half of the month there, the last third of the month, it really helps to have breakthroughs and sort of understand each other again and have better communication and feel like reconnected, heart and mind. Okay, so I want to get this out to you because I felt bad that I was all eclipsy and didn't get it done. Sleeplessness with the Uranus retrograde. So sorry, it's a little late. But so pretty good to tell you those things. I think that's enough. And if you want to have a session with me, alunamichaels.com. You can text me or call me at 248-583-1663. The number will be below the YouTube. I don't get the YouTube messages as easily, so if you want the session, make sure you connect with me directly through the website or my phone. And I will see you next month, and bye-bye for now. Have fun until then.